Hey, Mike Callahan here with the Simple Growth Podcast, episode number 2 with Garrett Matthews out of Shreveport, Louisiana. This is where the rubber meets the road, and we're going to be talking about how to become the top 1% of the whole entire lawn care industry. And you're probably asking, what does that mean? So what we're actually looking at is the statistics that we found is only 1% of all lawn care and landscape maintenance companies ever break $1 million. If you're looking at all small businesses across the whole U.S. and Canada, believe it or not, only 4% of all small businesses ever break $1 million. And obviously that number's a little bit smaller in the lawn care industry. So we're going to be taking a look at it to see, what does $1 million in sales look like? Is that something that you're interested in doing and what it takes to actually get there? And I'm going to give you a quick overview of kind of what that looks like in my experience working with several companies as well as my own, and what it kind of looked like in Garrett's. So to break $1 million, you're going to be somewhere around 15, 14 employees. Industry benchmarks tell us that we're somewhere between $67,000 and on the high side, $70,000 of gross sales per employee. And if you're looking at basically 14 to 15 employees to break that $1 million mark, you're going to be somewhere between 7 and 10 crews running on the road. Now, that may be a little bit different if you're in the Northeast doing snow removal, if you're down south in the Louisiana or Texas area where you're running year-round in some areas, or at least doing biweekly maintenance over the winter months. Things are going to be a little bit different, but those are pretty conservative benchmarks. So if you're looking to scale your business from 0 to $1 million and beyond, we're going to give a quick overview of what that looks like and how we set the foundation to grow and scale a company to $1 million and beyond, and the tips and tricks how to actually build a team as far as employees, how to set your sales goals. But before we ever hire an employee, we're really going to have to go out and create some sales funnels to actually go out and close some sales. So I'm going to turn it over to Garrett, and Garrett's obviously been through this, well past the $1 million mark, probably past the $2 million mark now, at least in his business. So I'm going to turn it over to Garrett and have him give a view of how he actually, when he started his business and he started to scale, how he looked out to see what money he needed to actually scale and how to see if his market was big enough to support the business he wanted to grow. So Garrett, if you don't mind, can you give the listeners just a peek under the hood of how you actually go in and set up the foundation to grow a business and see what it actually takes to break that $1 million mark, which seems pretty elusive in our industry and, well, the whole entire country for small businesses?
Well, yeah, for starters, I think that we use $1 million. $1 million is the benchmark, only because it just kind of seems it's just it's just a good round even number. Most people don't make it there, but the path for 0 to 1 is very similar for the path for 1 to 2 and 2 to 3, and we'll figure out what 4 to 5 looks like. I am, first off, I am anti-business plan. I don't like big formal books and business plans and all that stuff. But at the same time, you do have to have a plan. I mean, my entire business plan takes up like maybe 1 page of a notebook, and it's basically it's targets, if you will. There's some very basic information that you have to have in order to get there. And to start off with, like I said in the first one, if you'll reverse engineer the entire process, you'll get the answers that you're wanting. So if we start with the $1 million mark, so you say you want to do $1 million in business, that's great. Okay. It's actually easier to get to than most people realize. The first piece of information that you've got to have, though, is, and it's going to vary based upon where you are, what industry, if you're cleaning or if you're mowing, or if you're doing landscape maintenance or fertilization, weed control. The most important thing, though, that you've got to know is how much can you make off. So at $1 million, you're not going to have 1 or 2 trucks like Mike alluded to a minute ago. You're going to have crews. So the first thing you got to do, you've got to figure out, okay, these are going to be my service offerings. Personally, myself, I'm a very firm believer in less is more, meaning that if you can simplify your business, have fewer service offerings, it's going to make it easier to manage when you get at a larger scale. We've got 4 basic offerings that we offer, and that's it, and they're all tied into one another. But the first thing you've got to do is figure out, okay, so let's just use mowing or maintenance for an example. And Mike and I've talked, and a good average seems to be, and y'all don't get hung up on the details because this could be plus or minus. This is just for round number sakes. But let's say a crew can produce $130,000 a year. Well, that number is important to you because now you know that, okay, if one crew is going to make me $130,000 a year, that means you're going to have 8 trucks on the road to get to that $1 million mark. That's going to put you just over $1 million. Well, now that tells you, okay, well, so I need 8 trucks. Well, how many people do you need on that truck that's going to make 130? So maybe you're running 2-man crews. Well, there's 16 crew members that you're going to need to get to that $1 million mark. What is, how many clients can a truck service? So let's say that a truck can service, let's just say 200 people. So if one truck can do 200 people, or that's going to vary from people to people or market to market. But now you see how we're backing everything up. We need 8 trucks. Okay, great. That lets me know how many people I need. Okay, so now you can start thinking about, and we'll get into this later, but now you can start thinking about an organizational chart. What's it going to take for me to manage 8 trucks and 16 employees? If it's 200 people per truck, that means that you're going to have 1,600 clients. Okay, well, what does that look like? And it just kind of starts. So you just start progressively backing it up. But this is where knowing some of your basic numbers is important. You got to know how much a truck can produce for you. You got to know how many people are going to be on that truck, and you got to know how many clients that truck how many clients is going to be needed to service a truck. Because now that sets your marketing goals. That sets your goals for, okay, well, I need 1,600 clients. How much on average, and don't get hung up on the details, how much is it costing me to get a client? Say it's costing you, $50 to get a client. Well, now you need to do some math, $50 times 1,600 clients. So that lets you know, well, it's going to cost me roughly this much in a marketing spend. Well, now you can go back up even further, and you can go, well, I'm only spending $1,000 a month. So it enables you to set some timelines, some realistic timelines, some goals, and it, rather than just kind of haphazardly going about it and saying, I'm gonna grow $1 million company, it puts a little bit of clarity to it, and it gives you some benchmarks to shoot for. So if you need 8 trucks, and at the end of the year you've only got 4, well, I'm halfway there, and now you can start having some serious conversations with yourself. Well, do you want to get there faster? Well, that means you're going to have to go acquire more clients, and it's just kind of has a snowball effect. But the $1 million mark, I think, is so important because that level of scale, things start to get really interesting. As Mike alluded to earlier, only 1% of the people or lawn care companies even make the $1 million mark. So, that kind of, it's going to open up the doors, and it's going to allow you to do some things that you probably don't even realize or hear most people talking about, because 99% of the people aren't at $1 million. So they don't have any idea what that looks like. So it's a very comfortable position. Let's just, heaven forbid, let's say you're paying yourself 10%. Let's say you're paying yourself $100,000 on that $1 million. Well, now not only do you have a 1% company, but you're making more money than 15% of anybody in the United States. So there's just some really cool things that start happening there. But the key to it all is reverse engineering it, is knowing some of those basic numbers. You got to know, the first thing you've got to know, the most important thing you've got to know is in my opinion, in the foundation of it is that, okay, how much money can I make realistically, off of one truck? And if you're doing design, this is geared more towards maintenance and service. If you're doing design build, back your materials out, and you can do it the same way. It's your labor. How much money can I make off of my labor per year? And then, like I said, and then the rest is just easy to figure out.
Yeah, and I think too, just to touch on that, Garrett, I don't know about you, but life got a hell of a lot easier once we broke that million marker, got close to it. You're no longer killing yourself on the truck or putting out as many fires. You got some management layers in there, and life gets back to a normalcy. And I think part of it is
there's still fires. People don't need to get. There's still fires. It's just the fires that you're fighting now. The issues past the $1 million mark are fun issues, if you will. They're higher level things. They're not, at that mark, you're probably not dealing with the employees as much on a day-to-day basis. So, you're dealing with higher level efficiencies and, how can I bulk purchase this to save myself on materials? And there's a lot of things. So yeah, Mike is right. It's simpler, but there's still problems. It's just that now they're fun problems to deal with.
Yeah, and I think that the big thing is you don't know what you don't know till you know it. And what I mean by that is I wish I had a conduit or something to listen to like this, that people had already been there and done it before, because I didn't know when I first started out in business what that roadmap looked like. So I was literally just trying to get as many accounts as possible and just going through the daily motions with my head down, working as hard as possible. But success is very deliberate and intentional. And you can be highly successful, but unless you start tracking and have a goal that's obtainable that you're constantly shooting for each day, it's harder to get where that $1 million market, if that's your goal. So I think once you have a roadmap and an executable blueprint that we're trying to lay out here with this foundation, I think many of our listeners will probably break that $1 million mark a lot faster than we actually did ourselves, because it took several years, at least in my scenario, to figure out what that actually looked like and how to actually track it and actually get to that point. So hopefully that you find this information helpful, because these are the pains and growth that we've had personally in our businesses that we're trying to shed some light on, so our listeners don't have to have the same problems, and they can blast past these hurdles or glass ceilings they're going to hit at certain points in the business as they grow.
Absolutely. And it also will give you some clarity if, once you figure out some of these basic concepts and, you go through this exercise. You might be a fertilization company and you might make $200,000 off of a tech. Well, now, realistically, you need 5 trucks, and, let's say you make $500 off of a client. So you're going to need 2,500 clients. It gives you clarity, and you've got to be self-aware about what you like and don't like, what you're good and what you're not good at. If you've got a business and let's say you're growing, and let's use the third example as an example. Let's say that you want to hit $1 million doing just fertilization, and you need 2,500 clients to do that. Well, if you're currently sitting there now with 300 or 400 clients, and you hate life and life's miserable and you can't stand dealing with those 300 or 400, and this roadmap shows you that you need 2,500, well, that just, that lets you know that's a big red flag that, hey, I don't like this. I need to be prepared to hire around this. This is not my strong suit. I need to find somebody who can deal with the day-to-day issues of 2,500 clients, so I can focus over here. You might be the best mentor to a spray tech and trainer and know how to diagnose diseases and issues. You got to realize that, hey, I need to stay over here. I need to stay over here in this court. I need to let somebody. This brings a lot of clarity. It lets you know bottlenecks are going to be the biggest obstacle to growth. And typically speaking, we as the owners are the biggest bottleneck because we get in the way. We feel like that we have to do everything, but this will give you clarity and shows you what you're going to need and what you're going to be headed to. So it'll enable you to get out of the way faster as you start to approach these certain milestones.
Yeah, so I think quick overview is looking at this, and I think the last thing before we end this call is being deliberate how we track these things to make sure what we're doing to grow the business is actually working and how much it's actually costing us to make sure we can continue that process. But a quick overview, we're looking at average employee gross revenue per employee is about 67 to 70,000. You're going to be shooting 7 to 10 crews ballpark to hit this mark. And in order to track the marketing activities to grow the business, how we do it in our company here, for our lawn care company, is we use a product called Service Autopilot. Before we had that, we used a simple solution in Excel or a Google Doc. But we really, no matter what you're using, if it's pen and paper, we really need to have a systematic way each and every time a client calls our office or hits our website to track where they came from and how they heard about us. And then we track if we actually closed the sale or not. And then obviously we need the final number of how much marketing we spent in SEO to drive somebody to our website, or how much money we spent for pay-per-click, or how much money we spent for Facebook AdWords. And we need to track them separately as an expense, because you're going to find out that certain advertising functions close at a higher ratio and have cheaper cost per acquired new customer. And what I mean is each customer on average from Facebook may cost you $50 per customer, where maybe a direct mail set situation may cost you $100 per new customer. So when we start tracking these things, we can be very deliberate, and business becomes fun. It's a math game. So if we need 500 new clients, excuse me, this year, we are literally just going to drop them into each number line and have a predictable on average return investment on our time. So once business is a numbers game and it's predictable, it's fun, and scaling to that $1 million mark and beyond is a lot easier. That's how we do it in our company. And I don't know, Garrett, do you do something similar? Do you guys track how people heard about you?
We do, because we set our benchmarks, and like I said, once a quarter, and that's something else I would encourage you to do, is that I'm not telling you to ignore your numbers, but I'm also saying don't get so granular with your numbers that you get bogged down. You know, set some realistic benchmarks and goals. We reevaluate once a quarter. So every quarter we're sitting there looking at, well, this is where where were we on our marketing spend? Where are we on our client count? And are we reaching that goal? For us, client count is what, like I said, I know how much a client is worth to us. I know what our benchmark is. So I know how many clients I need to acquire. So yeah, so, at our level, I'm watching how much we're spending on marketing and how many new clients we're bringing in. I'm watching how many clients are going out, because, you're going to churn through some clients. So you got to make sure that you're netting at the end what you need to be getting. But yes, no, we definitely track. We've actually, like Mike said, because of the tracking, in terms of paid marketing, we only use two sources anymore. We use Google AdWords and we use Facebook ads. Those are the only two sources that we actually pay for. Now there's the trucks, and then there's the little yard signs after you service company, a yard and all that. Those are all, in my opinion, those are ancillary ways. Those are just givens. You should be doing that anyway, regardless of whether or not you're trying to grow. It's the brand awareness. But in terms of, because of the tracking, like Mike said and alluded to, that's the best bang for our buck. We can get the most clients for the best spend and on just those two platforms. I'm not telling you to use those two platforms alone. I'm saying that, like Mike said, you got to track that stuff, and then you got to take a look at the bigger picture. And it might be that Yelp, if you're in a bigger market, Yelp might be the better source for you. You might need more than 3 or 2. You might need 3. You might need 4. So yes, we do track it, and that is important.
Beautiful. I think that's it's really important. I think, especially in our industry, if you want to be an early adopter for more digital marketing, as far as, Facebook or, the Yelps or the Home Advisors, different channels, each market's different. So I'm not saying one's better than the other by any means. But our industry historically is very slow to adopt. So if you're going out and adopting these new technologies before your competition, when that technology shift happens in your market, if it already hasn't happened, you're going to be well in advance of your competition. So, I think that's something to look at down the line as well, because that's something that we've found is being an early adopter to technology and different automated systems, that we've had a distinct competitive advantage against the players in our market who are literally just doing black and white copied paper door hangers on people's homes. And that's literally the only source of advertising a new client acquisition outside of word of mouth. So in my opinion, and Garrett may disagree with me, but if you're not growing your business consistently, your business is going to die. And what I mean by that is your employees are going to become stagnant. They're not going to be innovating, and they're not going to be pushing the envelope to build new process and systems, become more efficient, and grow the bottom line. And if you're a sole entrepreneur and that's all you want to be, that's fine, but you still need to be growing. You can't rely on word of mouth. And
it might not necessarily be growing so much. Like you said, if you're a solo, or if you've reached, you might be content. You might be a $500,000. You might only want 3 trucks. And that's fine. It's all about the end game is all about just achieving whatever it is that you want. There's nothing that says that there's nothing wrong with being a $500,000 company if that's what you want, or $1 million. Some people, $1 million isn't going to be a good fit for some people. Some people are going to be incapable of managing it. But the point is that once you need to find that happy place. But the reason you don't want to stop your marketing, and what Mike's alluding to, is that, okay, so you're going to be a $500,000 company. Well, you spread out. Well, maybe you can now market in one specific area, and now you can try to draw your boundaries in, and you're going to be more profitable, because now instead of driving 20 miles away, you might only drive 5 miles away. So even if you are at the size that you are, it's your attention, and as we talked about earlier, you're being deliberate towards a different avenue, or your attention is going to be more deliberate towards this area, or this offering, or this product. So I completely agree.
And maybe the way it is maybe at this point you're not growing by size, but you're growing the bottom line. So just like Garrett talked about, is shrinking your market size. But the other thing we see on top of that, a lot of successful companies are doing is focusing on the bottom line. So I believe it was Jack Welch at GE focused on the bottom 10% of his clients, or the bottom 10% of his performing employees. So we see a lot of successful companies in the lawn care industry as well, focusing on the bottom least 10% profitability clients. So the bottom 10% of the company's clients that are the least profitable will raise those prices up by $2 to $3 per hour. And some of them will stay, so we're bringing up our profit margins. But the ones we leave through this process, we can go out actively and recruit and market new clients that are more profitable. So if we're not growing in size, we take our route density and improve that. And then the bottom 5 to 10% of our client base, we want to raise that price to raise our profitability. So if we're not growing in actual size, as far as revenue and clients, we're focusing on the bottom line growth. So we're always innovating and creating new things to be successful. And that has been a key thing in most companies to grow their bottom line and become profitable.
Well, and this is, I don't want to get all rah-rah or motivational, and this is by no means a paid advertisement for anybody, Mike McAllowitz or any of that, but I would really encourage people that, I don't get bogged down or don't get discouraged, because it really isn't hard. I would encourage people to read The Pumpkin Plan. That was a really awesome book. But one thing that I would encourage you to do is that, either in your service offering or your service area or whatever, take a look at what you're doing and where you're doing it. I'm speaking from experience. We used to do everything. If you asked us to do it, we did it. And life was not fun then, because we were so stretched thin. But, simplify things, simplify your business, simplify your offering. If you have 10 different services that you offer, try to only offer 5. Sometimes less is more. But the more complicated your business is, the harder and the less enjoyable it is going to be to get to you need to enjoy the journey, because it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And if you're not enjoying the marathon, you're going to fall on your face. And
that is for sure.
If you'll simplify I can't stress enough on simplifying it. There's going to be a ton of people. Like I said a minute ago, it really is easy. And there's going to be a ton of people that are going to tell you that it's hard, or it's not fun, or you don't want to do that, or whatever excuses are going to give you. And I would guarantee you 9 times out of 10, it's going to be people that either A, did it wrong, or B have never been there and they're just talking out of the side of their mouth. They don't know that it's miserable because they've never been there. They don't have anything to base it on. But I would tell you here at the end that don't start running these numbers and don't start looking at this bigger picture and get discouraged, because it really isn't that hard. If you'll simplify things, if you'll focus on things, Mike and I we talk all the time, and I tell him all the time when it comes to certain things, you got to remember that we're playing a game of chess. We're not playing checkers. You know what I mean? You've got to be very strategic with your moves. You need to be very deliberate, and it's going to take longer. You know, if you've heard it all your life, if it was easy, everybody would be doing it. But you just got to be prepared. You got to get this very elementary roadmap laid out, and then just stick to the game plan. You know, just form a plan and just stick to it. Be very deliberate, be very simple, and just be very low level with it. And another benefit, I know Mike and I have talked about this recently, and I think one problem that everybody has is employees. Don't get discouraged about employees, because if you got a simple business, you can have simple employees. And I don't want anybody to get discouraged. I don't want this to sound like a big bash and mash on the $1 million mark, because, like I said, it's a very attainable goal for everybody.
Yeah, I think
I'm in a market that's got 300,000 people. Shreveport Bossier's got 300,000 people, and we're well beyond the $1 million mark, meaning that you don't have to have as big of a market as you might think if you're very deliberate with it.
Yeah, I think it's all about being deliberate and putting the work in. And I guess the next podcast here, number 3, we're going to get into how to actually build an organizational chart and systems around, or structures around, how we actually build an organization with staff and employees to, once we get these sales, how to support and grow that so the thing doesn't fall apart. We had a question submitted. As always, we answer a question live here. Gentleman asks, how do we plan for future growth of the business? I'm going to give my spin on it a little bit. I'm going to go in a different direction here than how do we plan for that future growth as far as the structure. And then I will get Garrett's take on it. But I think the spin I'm going to take on it is actually, how do you prepare for future growth? And it touches on some of the things that Garrett was talking about is you need to actually go out and outlearn your competition. You need to go out and get an education. I mean, that's not necessarily through a university, but whether it be on the internet, reading books. I'm a big believer that you need to go out and read books of people who've been there and done it before, not specifically in the lawn care industry, but other industries as well. But I think the second part of that is, I think you need to prepare yourself emotionally and physically for the growth before you get there. And this is one thing that I'm blessed to have Garrett and a group of other people in the roundtable that we have in our masterminds group that support me, because I'll be candid, I don't think I was emotionally ready for the roller coaster that I've been on the last 4 or 5 years with the ups and downs. And the people that you surround yourself with are going to allow you to hit these goals, whatever they are that you have. But you're going to find out that your friends, and I hate to say it, but even your family, and your direct competitors that you're somewhat friendly with right now, they don't understand what you're going through. So you need to build the support network before you go absolutely crazy with your growth plan, because you're going to need these people to rely on emotionally as well as business and support. So people you talk to now that are your friends or your direct competitors that you're chummy with, I guarantee it. I've seen it 1,000 times, especially in my market that I'm in. These people do not understand what you're going through. They're trying to, probably in their best interest, give you advice, but they just don't understand because they've never been there, and they don't understand the emotional, physical grind that business owners go through. So my takeaway from this video, if you're watching it or listening to it, is go out and find like-minded individuals that have done it before you and know what you're about to go through, because it's going to get you through the low times. Most of it's the high times. If you're going to hit some low times through this process, that you're going to need someone to talk to. And if it's worst case scenario, if there's no one else in your market or somebody you can't get a hold of them, submit questions. And Garrett and I are here amongst some of the other co-hosts that we're going to be bringing on as guest speakers to talk you through the process. You're not alone. Owning a business is a lonely place. So my suggestion for future growth is go out and get an education and find a support network that you can learn from that's already been there and done that. Garrett, what are your thoughts on how to plan for future growth?
I mean, those are some very good points, and I do agree. I candidly agree with everything Mike said, and like he said, the group that we've got has been very important. You know, there's multiple versions. There's paid, there's unpaid. Service Autopilot's got the academy. It could be mutual friends, but yes, no, it's eliminating negativity is the biggest thing. So I agree with everything you said. For us, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, in terms of kind of having some very basic information. It's, you know, I don't get bogged down in the detail. It's just very basic, but we prep for growth through. So I know each one of our benchmarks. We know what it's going to look like. We know how many crews it's going to take. We know how much, what layer of management we think we're going to have in there. So and we, like I said, we reevaluate that every quarter, but as we continue to grow, it might be, and these are totally fictitious numbers, but let's say I need 10 mow crews and we're sitting there growing. Well, I know at 10 mow crews, I'm going to need a manager over just those mow crews. So we start prepping for the growth, knowing that, you know, well, we're going for 10, we're at 5, you know, how painful is it? You know, do we really, are we weak there? Do we need the management? So we know that, you know, we're only halfway, so we're going to need the management. Let's go ahead and bring them in now. So that's one of the ways that we prep for it, I guess, if you will, is, and it sounds like we're beating a dead horse, but knowing the end game, we know what the target is, we know what the end game is. So then, therefore, we can evaluate at any given time, where are we in that path? Are we 20% there or 80% there? If I'm 80% there and know that I'm going to want a manager at 10, well, it either lets me know that, hey, I can go ahead and bring them in preemptively, or maybe I was wrong. Maybe I don't need a manager at 10. Maybe I need a manager at 15. So that's just kind of how we prep and plan, is the knowing where we're going, but also taking the time once a quarter to evaluate, well, this is where we're going, this is where we are. And, you know, like I said, how painful is it? You know, like Mike said, and this is probably a good spinoff on that, even within our business, I like to share the responsibility in that it's myself and 3 of our key employees. You know, it's not just me evaluating this information. It's the 4 of us once a quarter. We sit down and we go, well, you know, we make group decisions so that you don't need to bear the burden all on your own. You can kind of spread it out and you can kind of get some input from other people, because something, you know, it might not be as painful to your operations manager as it is to me. So, you know, there are certain things that I think are a pain in the ass, and Haley says aren't a big deal at all. So, you know, it would be silly for me to make an emotional decision when it's just not a logical decision. So, yeah, like Mike said, surround yourself with good people, get all negativity out of the way, and just know at the end of the day, things really aren't that bad.
Awesome. No, I appreciate it, Greg. This is great. So that's going to lead right into our talk next week, how to build an organizational chart to actually facilitate the things we're talking about today, to lay that foundation. In each week, we're going to build upon some things. Every once in a while, each week, we may take a break from the business building aspect of bringing a guest speaker to focus on a business topic that's hot and interesting and will allow us to grow business or the systems inside the business. So until next week, I want to thank Garrett Matthews over in Shreveport, Louisiana, Mike Callahan in Rochester, New York, on the Simple Growth podcast. Till next week, go out and outwork your competition.